And then sharing my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. Entire screen, share it now. And then you should see a document.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is what I provide when we're going through particular mock interview questions. So what I have is we're going to craft some of these. For each of the questions we're going to cover today, your focus is being able to confidently explain any previous jobs, why you're shifting back into, shifting away from pharmacy tech, kind of explaining it in your history, but then leading to that tell me about yourself question. Because you are, in a sense, shifting careers. You're wanting to get into the finance analyst role for the first time, but you've kind of been in a couple other areas up to this point. So we definitely want to be strategic in the tell me about yourself and be able to kind of take what you've been doing in your past, tie it to where you want to go, and just be able, and avoid any, negatives, whether it's with the current company or that you didn't like compliance. We really just want to take all of the good stuff that came from those experiences and be able to tie it up to where you're wanting to go. And that resonates really well with hiring managers. So we'll cover the why do you want to move from pharmacy to finance, just in case that does come up. I included this one as an extra one because, again, it may or may not come up. Why are you leaving your job? Or this could be, why are you leaving your current organization, or anything around there. They tell me about yourself. And the red is where I started to kind of mock something up. But I can put down how I would approach it, but we want to nail that down and just kind of script it together.
Okay. I did notice that I think there may have been a miscommunication or a typo. It was a part-time role as the data entry pharmacy tech. It wasn't a contract role.
Okay, we can fix that. That was just when I was starting to think through it all. That's minor detail, but yes, we'll update that. And then I threw this one in here as well, because again, you're shifting from a career change perspective. Now your resume does not show the current pharmacy thing you're going through. It shows that your last role ended in March and that you've just been in the job search. So, why are you interested in this role? So, and which each of these you'll see, I have kind of a mindset matters call out. So when you're preparing for interviews, kind of remember coming into this. And I'll go here for a moment. Why are you leaving your job? Whenever you are talking about this, you must approach this absolutely devoid, no emotion in it. Emotions off the table. This is not the place for that. We have our emotions, and yes, we have situations that were very difficult, but when we're talking about this in an interview, we have to keep it completely factual. Never say anything bad about our past employer or manager. Don't complain about 60-hour work weeks. Nobody wants those, but we're going to take, the approach. We're going to find one nice thing to say. We're going to mention 2-3 skills. We're going to take a negative and turn it into a positive, so okay. Each of these, there's kind of, if there's any mindset call outs, hey, just make sure before you address this, kind of get your head in the game, do what you got to do to, in this example, get the emotion off of it, process it. But that way, when you go into it, you can just kind of keep it factual. And then you'll see the approach. If we have one we're going to cover, that way, when you take this and in the future, if there's any other questions, you have a framework that you can work with.
Okay.
Yep. And so with an hour, I figured we could get through these key questions, which frankly, the tell me about yourself is a big one. Why are you leaving your job is also a big one. So we'll get those through. Just a few call outs. When you are looking at responses and you're prepping for interviews, you always want to tailor any of your responses that you're preparing for an interview, tailor it obviously to the job. Try to keep it between 60, 90 seconds. And then we're always wanting to tie something back to the job that you're actually interviewing for. So if you're interviewing for a business analyst role that is really heavy on those advanced Excel skills and cross-functional collaboration, then any stories you're going to want to tell in that interview, you'll want to focus on your soft skills, the cross-functional collaboration you did, the different folks that you've worked with, the fact that you've worked with external, not just internal partners. That's a big deal. Not everybody in the analyst role has worked with external partners. The fact that you've had any exposure, you don't have to have led the contracts and led all the discussions. If you have worked with those folks, emailed them in any fashion, you have collaborated with them, right? So you just want to be able to tie based on the job you're interviewing for. And then the key thing, I even do this in the beginning when you're practicing some of these, you're going to want to be, we're all going to be kind of trying to memorize and get comfortable. We want it to sound natural. But when you go into the interview, the worst thing we want to do is sound like a robot. We don't want to go trying to remember our memorization. You want to practice it enough to where you know it. But if something throws you off, you can still answer it very confidently and smoothly, very naturally.
Mhm.
So when you're preparing for interviews, practice your questions, but try to have them at bullet points. Don't try to have them so memorized that if you forget exactly how you wanted to say one thing, now it completely threw you off. And this is right smack dab in the middle of an interview. That's happened to me. So that I did a lot of memorization in the beginning. Now I practice it enough to know the key points I want to mention. I know the stories that I want to bring up or the examples. I know why I want to bring them up. And that way and anything that I want to remember to mention, I just practice that response enough to where those key points are natural. They'll come out, but they'll come out different. The verbiage won't be exactly the same, and that's okay.
Okay.
And I'll include this as well. I'm actually digging up some other tips that you may have that you'll see here. For example, when you are researching, I'm going to include a section for basic company research. So when you're researching a company before the interview, I'm just going to include some basic tips on what to look up. Understanding what the company does. I'm looking at my notes over here. So that way you can kind of go into it, and the company research will really help you kind of go into it ready to ask questions to them, which is, remember, if you get an interview, if they call you for an interview, you are already qualified. They would not waste their time if they saw anything in your resume that they were not sure you were qualified. So if they're calling you, now it's a matter of being able to back up what they think they saw on your resume with just those examples, those stories. And it's really at that point showing your culture fit. You could very easily fit in with their employees, with their manager. You could easily just join day one and provide some value. So just keep that in mind. If they've called you, you're qualified. At that point, you're just focusing on culture fit and having the right stories ready. Focusing on that ability.
And not to take up too much time, but I mean, I guess depending on how this other thing goes with my current job, I mean, would I just tailor it to whether it's still my current job or past, depending on the outcome?
You mean on whether or not you want to add that to your resume?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to probably add it at some point.
I mean, if things move quickly, maybe not. It'll just appear like you've had a couple months of, and you could easily do some Excel online training and sprucing up and be able to say that in the meantime, you've been working on, developing your whatever skills. You could easily.
It turns out that I've actually already added it to my resume. So I don't know if that's an issue or not. At least it came up yesterday in the call that this recruiter.
How did it come up? Because they wouldn't know about it unless you told them about it. I mean, if you're ready to add it, we'll have to adjust. But
Well, I did tell them like, no, actually I am working, because I guess they were going by an old resume, but then they're like, oh yeah, I see on your LinkedIn that, you've been working, since, the last resume they saw was for some reason from, my project analyst as my most current job. I'm like, oh no, actually I've worked a couple jobs since, which in my respect, I think is better than not working for a long period of time. But no, I just, like I said, I wanted to, kind of just have an idea of what to say,
yeah, but keep in mind, March. So when we first connected, March, I think we connected in May. Yeah,
Mhm.
that had only been 2 months.
Mhm.
Job searches these days are not wrapping up in 2 months. At that point, you just want to show, if we didn't include the current,
Mhm.
then we just wanted to show that you've been doing some type of learning. You can easily include that and just show, yep, I've been on the
Right.
job market and
Mhm.
I've been working on development in the meantime. Wonderful.
Mhm.
As time goes on, yeah, at
Mhm.
that point we may want to consider adding it. And I
Okay.
think at the point where we were talking about that, you were really hesitant on having too much pharmacy stuff in there, and you didn't want, and you were really hesitant on how to speak to that. So whether you have one or both, it's still, I think, pretty easily explainable.
Okay.
Um,
And I
so
guess it doesn't matter whether the outcome is I'm still working. I mean, I guess even if they say,
you're
the
still employed there.
no, no, right. But I'm
You
saying
leave,
I have a
you're
feeling
not,
I might not be much longer. And even if
right,
they
but
say,
that's
oh
not.
no,
So
the
don't give them more information. They do not need that information. That is your
I'm
current
sorry,
place of
the
employment.
interviewer, right?
Yeah, we do not give them more information than they need, because frankly, we don't want to get into a lot of personal details. You don't know
Less
who.
is more.
Less is more, exactly, because you don't know who's going to read into something the wrong way. If it's not pertinent to your qualifications for that role, it makes no difference.
Okay.
All right, so why don't we jump through and let's start doing some scripting. So we are at 12:20. We should be able to easily knock this out by 12:45. We will, or even prior to that, we will start doing some mock interviewing, meaning I'm just going to pretend I'm the interviewer asking you these questions and you can just practice with me. So with me, it'll be easy. I can tell you, when you first start practicing any type of response, it will come out very unnatural the first couple of times, and we will
Mhm.
tweak the response as you kind of practice it. Like, no, I don't like that. I'll do it like this.
Mhm.
Because again, you will have this when you're done, so you can just continue practicing.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So one question that may come up, especially if you're adding the two, the current pharmacy role, the
Mhm.
question may come up. You have a changing. You're starting off in one area, you moved into pharmacy. Now,
Mhm.
why do you want to move from pharmacy into finance? Because the reality is they're going to look at your resume and they'll see some jumping of industries. Now, COVID, and especially, COVID was a time that many made career transitions. And this is the mindset matters part, because many
Mhm.
were just rethinking life. So it is okay that you went from, Sikorsky and dabbled in pharmacy, that you're young, you have the ability to go and try different things in your career, because even if it turns out to be an area that did not work out, you still learn something about what you like, what you don't like. So it's still growth in your career. So since this is not something we want to avoid, we definitely want to be prepared. We want to cover it simply, definitely, so you're comfortable, you can talk to it confidently, but we will use it to reinforce the desire to move towards the finance analyst space. So really, and I actually started to cover it over here. Let me just jump here real quick.
It came up in my last interview, and I may have given too much.
Yes, you have to be, yeah, this is why we'll have this to practice. So here is what I started to kind of draft for, like, a tell me about yourself. So if they're tell me about yourself, well, sure. Earlier this year, I wrapped, and that's where you got the contract. So earlier this year, I wrapped up, a short-term role. I don't want to call it part-time, because part-time means like half hour. So a short-term role and this is when I didn't know that you were adding your most recent, but short-term role, data entry, where you managed whatever. It was a pivot that came during COVID. And while it provided valuable experience, it also reaffirmed my passions and strengths that lie with data and analysis. Because finance analyst would be dealing with a lot of data, a lot of numbers, and a lot of analysis, right? So taking the explaining during COVID, you gave it a try, and it's a pivot that came during COVID. You're not getting into a lot of details. It was a pivot, it came during COVID. Most people won't dig into any questions around the COVID era because it was just a crazy time for all of us.
It's still technically going on, so to speak, I guess, and not to take up too much time.
The fact that COVID, there are still cold viruses out there. There always will be. So yeah, not worried about that. But while, so I want to make sure we focus on this. So it was a pivot that came during COVID, which a lot of people experienced. And while it provided valuable experience, you're acknowledging something positive about the pivot. I know, just from what you've explained to me, you really haven't, pharmacy is definitely not your thing, but it still provided experience, right? So we're going to take the positive in it. And then it also reaffirmed that my passions and strengths lie with, it could be finance, data, whatever you want to put here. So let's chat. Let's get this short-term thing updated at the top, because if you see, once we get through that, this is the part where you're already calling out it was a pivot. You're not calling it out as a career change, or you're not getting into details that, yeah, I gave it a try. Maybe it was an opportunity for more money, but I really didn't like it. None of that. It was a pivot that came during COVID, and that's it. You're not having, when the guy asked the question yesterday, what did they ask you?
Yeah. So, why did you, jump into pharmacy? And I said, well, it was a bit of a career change, or, it was something I guess I could have tailored him, like, my degree is in finance, and I had an interest in pursuing financial opportunities within the healthcare industry.
It's actually not
I
a
could
bad
have
role.
said it like that, but
Oh, okay. So that's not what you said. So let me write
no,
that
but
down.
I was kind of in what I've said in several instances of like being asked, so why did you choose pharmacy? And I'm like, well, actually, I had an interest. And in the interview, I said, it was an interest, and I'm already a nationally certified tech, and I was considering going to pharmacy school to be a pharmacist. And I said, well, no, I kind of I drew a line and said, I really don't want to go that route. I really want to do, something more in line with what this role entails, and kind of just left it at that. So.
Yeah, and that's what we'll need to break down. What this role entails is not calling. So that's a very general statement. So when you're going for the interview, you want to be able to state exactly why you're interested in that role. What's drawing you to that role?
Right. So, I mean, well, with yesterday's interaction, I mean, it was more so just a screening of like, all right, hey, you look like you're, I've seen your resume. I think you'd be a good fit for this role. All right, last I had, you were working as a project analyst, way back when. And I'm like, oh no, on the contrary, I've actually worked several jobs since. And my current employer is Yale New Haven Health. I'm as a pharmacy tech. So,
Yep.
I wanted to give accurate info. My thought was it doesn't look good if you're working one job, it ends kind of short notice, and then you're just kind of out, on the deep blue ocean with nothing. So,
Well,
it looks better. And I didn't want to take up too much time, but just.
right. Hold on, though.
Okay.
This job did not abruptly end. When you talk about this job, this data entry, it was a contract role that ended. It was a short-term role that ended. It doesn't matter what details went into it. They're with the privacy laws, they are not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not going to call the company and verify it, because it is illegal for HR companies to give that information out these days, right? So it is a short-term role that ended. That's really all you have to say. You do not have to get into any more than that.
Mhm.
And that's one of the key things. I've been laid off from a couple different roles. I've had companies that literally went out of business and closed their doors one Friday, and I had to articulate all this. And I worked with a recruiter who really helped me frame how I talked about some of these. And like, you do not have to give them more than that. Just simply
Okay.
state temp contract role or temp or short-term role that
Right.
ended. Done.
Okay. Well, and not to, this will be my last point, and then we'll just,
Yeah.
press on from here. But that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe I do need some additional coaching sessions. So I don't know how you normally, if you do those. I don't know if you saw my email about that. I was just kind of
I have
saying,
not
like,
seen that yet. I was kind of doing some more research and prepping for this, and
okay.
that's where I came in and decided I wanted to add. We always have the ability to add more questions to cover, but that's where I thought this would be a good one to add because it's also a career change scenario. I want you to confidently be able to tie, you know, similar to what you mentioned when you were responding to the gentleman, not just say, what this role entails, be able to say specifically. Now, if they're asking you on the call, hey, I have this other job and you haven't had a chance to look at it, then obviously,
Well, and that's what funny enough, it does tend to be that I'm
sometimes
speaking
that
to
happens.
these
Yeah. Yeah.
recruiters on the phone where I'm not able to see it. I'm just kind
Yeah.
of
No,
going
I get it.
blind.
Yep. And
And
you're definitely within your right. If they ask you, hey, I have this other opportunity, great.
mm,
Would you be able to send me the job description?
well, and
Um,
that's what I had asked yesterday
okay.
after I said, is this a new or backfill role? Do you have any other opportunities that are available that you think I'd be a good fit for based on our conversation? So I've kind of now I'm starting to just spread a little bit more than just all right, and some of it I feel like is kind of redundant in that y- you know um you know some of
Yeah,
these
it's
questions I've
really fun.
asked, I felt like
No,
I should be asking the hiring manager if I'm selected for an interview, but that's besides the point. So all
yeah,
right,
interview.
I'm done.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. I know. And actually, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. So yes, I'll take a look at your email and definitely respond to that because we can approach it in a couple different ways just based on where you specifically need the help or need the support. I've seen it, I've played it out in different ways. Some folks, they need really targeted, interview coaching sessions just to help them be confident in particular areas. Some are just completely, we're kind of covering a couple different points to be able to kind of cover the end-to-end coaching or interview process. And then others, yes, I need some interview coaching sessions and they want more, hey, weekly accountability or have maybe 30-minute sessions available to them so they can literally schedule a 30-minute call before an interview. So it just, whichever, I'll reply to that later. So, and I did put this in here because that's good. It's an opportunity that came up and how you responded to that was great. So that could be another way to say it. And it's another simple way to say it, to pivot that came. Regardless of how you approach that though. So if you remember where we have been, where we want to go. So we're talking about the where we have been, right? Um, let's actually update. So if you are now including, so earlier this year, let's see, tell me about yourself. So earlier this year, I took a career pivot.
And not to, does it matter that this role started, November of last year and ended March of this year?
Oh, I'm in the process of removing that because you said you're including your current role in your resume, so that's coming
Okay,
out.
so my
Yeah,
apologies. Yeah,
that's okay.
and
I'm
that's
actually
partly why I
noted.
sent the
I'm
email
combining it.
saying, yeah, I think we're gonna need more.
Yeah, so earlier this year, I took a pivot looking for opportunities to move into finance, into medical finance.
Mhm.
This took me into the pharmacy industry. Because again, this is where we've been, and we want to put a positive twist. And while it provided valuable experience, it's also reaffirmed that my passions and strengths lie in data and analysis. I mean, pretty much that's all the roles you've had so far have been very data focused, analytical. You enjoy the numbers. So, and you don't even have to say my passions, but you could say my strengths. But I just recognize with you that's something that you really enjoy. That's an aspect of it. And talking and using the word my passion in an interview, I think is strong because you're telling them about what makes you tick, not just saying something I'm good at.
Okay.
So
Not the first person to say, passion, and although it's been years since I've heard. Well, no, I've heard it continuously. I always kind of question it, but I digress.
Well, it's not a bad thing to say, whether you're male or female, because in other words, that is something, and think about culture fit, how important culture fit is for hiring managers today, right? They want to know what makes you tick. If it's a company that's also passionate on similar things, that is a strong word to start building connection with that hiring manager. So it's not something you hear people talk. Actually, I hear people talk about, they don't come out with it easily. But when you start talking about what people enjoy, an area they enjoy working in, I often hear people, well, I'm really passionate about design, or I'm really passionate about engineering. So I do hear it in work terms coming up more and more, because what we're passionate about fuels where we're going to put the most effort into, where we're going to be hungry to learn more about. So I think it's a strong. But so here's where we have been. Before this, I spent several years at Sikorsky, and we went over this in lead analyst roles. Now I put in their lead analyst. You ended in a lead analyst role. That doesn't mean that by this verbiage is implying that every one of your roles there were lead. You started off with entry level and you worked your way up. But your latest role, you were overseeing multiple projects. You were a lead, analyst in that particular space across operations, purchasing, and international trade compliance. And this is where we're kind of getting into what makes you tick. I enjoyed solving problems that impacted the financial bottom lines and worked with tools like SAP and Excel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and not to cut you off, but I guess part of me is, most of my roles were indirect. They were operationally driven, so they weren't direct costs. I mean, yeah, it still affected the numbers, but is what I'm saying making sense from like a business
and see,
standpoint?
this is what I think is going to be. So here's a mindset thing. Your work impacted cost. So why does it matter if it was direct or indirect?
Okay. No, and I guess my thought was maybe it could be looked at that way. So
Yeah, I mean, Nick, some of the problems that you solved when you were with Sikorsky, own that. You helped keep things on track. You solved compliance problems. It does not matter that you were not like the head person solving everything. It doesn't matter that you weren't the manager. Your work contributed to the bottom line. And that is what you want to take into these interviews. You did it with the help of others. You collaborated. You were successful through your due diligence and collaborating with others. But own those. Because that's actually what's going to help you win these interviews, not being cocky about it, but just, because of the work I did, it actually did help keep things in compliance. It actually did ensure those projects could continue on time or on schedule because you resolved any shortage issues. Like you spent the extra due diligence working with all of these vendors and with all the shipments and handling all that stuff. You diligently looked at that return. What was that return order log that you told me about?
Return to vendor.
Return to vendor. You had described that as just something that you were looking at every day. So in my head, I painted this picture that you were like on a warpath trying to
I
resolve these
was.
issues.
I was.
That type of diligence, that's passion. Now, it wasn't that you were passionate about return to order. You were passionate about, it could have been in your, sometimes I take things as a personal challenge. I'm going to get this down. However, whatever that fuel that fired in you, it was something that you were passionately pursuing and you knocked it out. That's the stuff that hiring managers want to hear about, because that's how they can picture you diligently solving problems in their company, which they want those kind of people.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. So earlier this year, and you notice that, okay, let me read this out loud and make sure it makes sense because we're at the scripting part. Earlier this year, I took a career pivot looking for
opportunities to move into medical.
So earlier this year, you took a pivot looking for these opportunities, and pharmacy came about, and you gave it a try. And while it provided, how about we don't need to make things wordy. While it was valuable experience, it also reaffirmed that my passions and strengths really lie with data and analysis. So you're really not getting into. You don't have to get into how the current role is going. So if you start talking to people while you're still going through this mess with the current pharmacy company, walk around your office at home, kind of clear your head of all of that. That has nothing to do with the interview. Like, leave all of that at the door in a sense. Just kind of mention it. How you explained it down there is a great way to approach it as well. I really love how you mentioned you were looking for that opening to move into finance. You thought it would be an opportunity. It turned out it wasn't. Okay. Gain some experience. And now I'm trying to get into where my passions really lie,
Right.
And then I also put down here my degrees in finance, and now I'm focusing on getting back onto that path, applying, and you can practice this and get it down. It's not, we want to keep it to like a 60 seconds response or less. So this is just what's drafted out. You kind of tweak it, practice it out loud a couple times. What sounds easy off the tongue. But the key thing is that, where you came from, where you want to go. You've mentioned that a couple times here. And then, and why you're looking to go forward into this area. You're looking to apply your analytical skills, your attention to detail in an entry-level finance analyst role. Like, I'm not even, I'm trying to just get my foot in the door. I can help teams make data-driven decisions. You get the gist.
And not to cut you off again, because I keep, but this is the new or the current way of kind of what they're looking for, so to speak. Because I've heard different things. Okay.
I mean, you can go online and look up many different ways to do the tell me about yourself, but this 3-point framework is something different peers in the career services industry. This is just what the 3-point framework we tend to use to simplify it with with folks that we work with, because a lot of times interviews already are nerve-wracking. We don't want to overcomplicate. Simple is always better.
Okay.
All right, so let's come back here now. I did not try to draft this one because I wanted to do this one with you on the call. So why do you want to move from pharmacy to finance? The reason why I jumped here first, because I think you've already kind of covered that. Let's see.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah. I moved into pharmacy. Hoping it would be a path into medical finance. And it did not. It led to pharmacy tech roles, which brought
new experiences, but not what I foresaw.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way. Pretty much brought valuable experiences, but it's just not towards the career path you're looking to go for, or it's taking you farther from,
Mm-hmm. Want to get on the right path.
oops. All right, so find, I can't spell today.
Hmm.
There we go.
I
Find,
guess if there is a question of why I took that pharmacy tech training, because I did put it on my resume. I thought it was, a good accomplishment to, put. And I mean, it may help for medical finance roles when I take a look for them.
yep.
At them.
Well, so looking at this, so if I'm asking you, so Nick, why do you want to move from pharmacy into finance? That's an interesting move. I mean, go ahead and practice your response here.
It is. I moved into pharmacy hoping it would um, pave the way for a path into medical finance roles. I learned it did not. It led me more so to pharmacy tech roles, which I found have brought valuable experiences, but it furthered me from my career goals as a financial analyst.
Wonderful. Very simple, short, straight to the point.
Mhm.
We do not have to get into, and if they were to come back, you do not have to get into what about it you liked, what about it you didn't like.
Mhm.
You do not have to get into your decisions of why
Mhm.
you thought it would help you get to those medical finance roles. It won't come up.
Okay.
Now they could ask just based on that response, oh, really? So what were the valuable experiences? Like what, and from your time in pharmacy. So I would definitely be prepared. I'll just make a note of that. Be prepared in case
Mhm.
they ask what valuable.
Okay.
Because
Well,
in the
it
interview,
definitely.
they're getting to know you, right? So
Mhm.
could get someone who goes, oh, that's interesting. Well,
Mhm. Yeah.
what good
Well,
experiences?
right. And I mean, it did highlight like high value items. Like we learned, that, we don't ever put too much of a high value med in a respective unit. Likewise, with controls, we limit the access to certain things, which is very similar in certain financial roles, like such as working in a bank. Like only certain people have access to um, the money vault. Certain things are not privy to the greater employee body.
So the
It
financial
also
components you found interesting.
correct. Yep, I also enjoyed interacting with different cultures of people that I may not have been exposed to for a variety of reasons in other roles.
So you were working directly with patients?
Um, no, I mean just like different cultures of people that were techs. So
Yeah, so
like,
I'll say I'll put like, and I also enjoyed like the cross-functional collaboration in the
right.
environment
Yep.
in that environment, and it
Well,
in
different perspectives. Well, what I deemed as, not a major thing to someone else is like, oh no, that's a big pain point, and maybe pain point isn't the right word, but that's what's coming to mind at the time, and vice versa. Like, I got a little weirded out about like sanitation and what have you, and or like conserving like waste, so to speak, and other people are like, oh no, just toss it, like it's reusing bags, so to speak, and what have you. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So
So then I kind of regurgitated that too. So, if they do come back with what valuable experiences, well,
mhm,
the financial components I enjoyed. I also
mhm,
enjoyed the different perspectives and collaboration in that environment. and high level of collaboration. And compliance was a big deal, which I'm very experienced in. So, I mean, that's kind of calling out. And now when your compliance is going to be a big deal in any finance role, which is why, even though I know you don't want to, I know you were hesitant. If you talk too much about finance, you'll kind of get steered back into like the
It was a pain point, yeah. And unfortunately, I would have replied sooner with, but that was just kind of rethinking about that. It gave me a headache. Not to throw.
Compliance is big in finance, though,
Yeah,
and you have compliance experience that not a lot of people have. So, like, a lot of people come in as project analysts. I'll just use a tech example. That's more entry level. Once you're experienced, you become like the risk manager of those projects. So compliance already adds a layer of expertise that not everyone is going to have.
I also have.
That's a unique part of your value proposition. So you don't have to worry. You can actually just leverage it and know that that adds another layer to, let's just say, your muscle. That beefs.
I mean, I also have a certificate from Cornell in project leadership. So,
but the compliance thing, like, I just want you to have the right perspective. You don't have to worry about being pigeonholed back into the type of that Sikorsky type role. You're not applying for those type of jobs. And if a recruiter says, "Hey, I see you worked at a company like Sikorsky. I actually have another one of those roles." You make you're in control. You make the decision that, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not. But from a finance perspective, compliance is big. And so definitely, if that good thing came from those years at Sikorsky, thank you, Sikorsky. Use it and allow it to strengthen your value proposition for finance,
Okay. All right. Let's continue, because I know we only got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I'm only drilling that one down because I do understand your perspective in it. But in this instance, own everything that you got going for you, because that is a value. Okay.
All about me. The next thing since sliced bread.
Okay, and if the question comes up, so if you are including the current pharmacy, and make sure that if you do have it officially on your resume, just try to get the formatting to look similar to how I added the jobs, but then get it into your LinkedIn profile if it's not already there, because I don't recall if it was in there. So
it's not, but I mean, is that regardless?
Match.
Well, right, but I mean, I should still put it in my resume / LinkedIn, whether I'm still there or not. Because, like I said, I just have that feeling.
It'll show as your present job, and then now we're going to get to why are you leaving your job. Oh, good.
Oh no, I just kind of breathed a little, like.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for this one, it's pretty simple. You'll notice some commonalities. And I didn't complete this one because, again, I didn't want to just speak for you. But my passion is really in finance. And now you think about finance and what? Because you're going for finance analysts. So, and data analysis.
Yeah. Just reviewing trends of what's been done previously, and what do we think the next future time period is gonna, how it's gonna fare. Is it gonna do better or worse? What's the projection?
And what's the company you're at now?
Me, I'm at Yale New Haven Health.
Sorry, one more time.
Yale New Haven Health.
Yale New Haven.
Oh, Yale, like YALE.
Yale, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so Yale. Okay, yeah. I mean, a really simple response that I like to use is like, well, my passion is really in finance and data analysts, and as much as I know I could do this job, again, they do not need to know the details that are going on right now. Because if you were to stay there long enough and with the right support, you could nail this job. You've done enough at Sikorsky that I know you could.
I
Honestly,
feel like
I think
I've done a lot in this current job, but that's besides.
right. Honestly, but though the way that you've talked about it, it just doesn't, like you're not really, doesn't seem like you're really happy in the role, even as you're going through the training. So that makes a big difference in the quality of our work and, our performance. So as much as I know I could do this, do this role at Yale, I know I'll have the ability to do what I enjoy doing on a larger scale with, and then that's a good opportunity to throw in the company name.
Okay.
Do, because when it says this, finance and data analysis.
On these attributes on a larger scale with your company or with so and so.
Yeah. And another simple one, like
Mhm.
I love finance and data analysis and working with your, and leaving my job will give me more opportunities to do more of it. So I wanted to give you a couple different alternatives on how to answer this. You do not have to get into, I'm struggling with this training program. I don't like the manager. They're not being supportive. Don't have to get into any of that because that will actually look negative. So we're kind of the approach, if you want to even try to script this on your own, is really start by saying one nice thing about it, mention a couple of skills or abilities that you've developed.
Sorry, I got to use the restroom.
Sure, go ahead. Right. Do you have this at one?
I was going to reserve, so I was checking if anybody was in here.
I'm actually going to be done here in about 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, my apologies.
That's okay. I actually just drafted. So if I ask a question, so Nick, I see you're with Yale New Haven Health. So why are you leaving your job or why are you choosing to leave? So if I follow this approach, I've enjoyed the deep collaboration in the pharmacy tech role and have enjoyed strengthening data analysis skills and learning some new systems. But this has taken me farther from my goal of moving into a finance role. And then you could easily tie it to, and that's what has drawn me to this particular role or job. And you can easily tie it to that role.
Okay. And I know it says or, like you wouldn't by those are used multiple of those in one response, so to speak?
Yeah, no, I was just including some different perspectives on how you could approach that.
Okay. All right.
But if I go along the framework that I was proposing, but a, and I should have written down what I just said. But I do want, since this is farther from my career goal of finance analyst, I look forward to working with, company.
And not that it matters too much, but from my career goal of a financial analyst, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, remember, you're gonna practice this, and it'll probably feel like memorization at first, but you're not.
Mhm.
If when you're given this response, you don't say my career goal of it shouldn't throw you off. Like, it's just how you'll say it in times where you'll be comfortable of it, but we're wordsmithing it, so I definitely understand the catch. But the goal is you're calling out the one nice thing. So you enjoy the deep collaboration. You're mentioning a couple skills that you built. So also being a little positive about the current job. And you're just tying it to what's, your goal, why you're considering leaving, and then tying it to what's drawing you to that particular role, which is your career goal is a finance analyst role. And so that's why you're interested in with this particular company. And let's say you interview with a company where maybe it's not finance analyst job title, but you know that if you were to get hired there, it's that they do have those roles there, then it could be, since this is further from my career goal of a finance analyst, I look forward to working with a company in that field or something to that effect.
Okay.
Yeah, so these I can take out if they're just going to add some confusion to it.
Well,
But
I just didn't know if the or the, you know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like, not to put a filler word in, it just seemed more grammatically to say as a financial analyst, not the end all be all or something. That's just kind of how my mind was thinking.
And I get it because right now we're scripting it. But
Mhm.
in casual conversation, would you catch if someone didn't say or the and they were just having a casual conversation? We catch it when we're looking at it. But when we're listening to it, unless it is for some reason, whatever
Mhm.
sentence you stated, it just stands out. We really don't notice it, right? So I definitely understand why you're catching it here, but just keep in mind, this is practicing for something that will be a casual verbal discussion.
Okay.
So I wanted to just give you different options, but do you want me just to remove these if they're going to cause confusion?
No, keep them. Again, I just, my thought would be to, and even, I don't know, I guess I just always look for it being grammatically or it sounding professional, not like, I
Yeah,
look at that as kind of like, all right, they didn't spend the time to rehearse it or to use spell check or Grammarly or whatever.
Yeah, but keep in mind, you have been talking, you have been through college, multiple training. I already know you're going to sound professional.
Okay.
So I already know when this is actually going to come out in an interview, you're likely not going to skip or the to make a complete sentence. So again, I completely understand why you're catching it here because I also do a lot of wordsmithing. So you're catching the grammar. But so yeah, definitely got it in there. But once you've practiced it, don't worry if it doesn't come out, if you're kind of critiquing yourself after the interview. Practice, all you can do is be prepared, have good examples and stories to tell, and then just take a deep breath and just go in calm and be confident and own your skills, own what you do bring to the table. Okay, so I know you had to leave at a certain point. We actually spent more time wordsmithing, which we have really good responses to these questions.
Did we get through everything?
We did. I just wanted to spend more time doing some mock interviews. So let's do this. How do you feel as far as, with your background? Because we've touched on this a couple times, a couple points in this call even. There is a topic that we can spend some time going through from an interview prep perspective that can help you based on the job that you're applying to, help you identify what type of stories from your experience to have, which will be most valuable to have ready for that job interview. So when it comes down to it, the idea is that, we can look at all of our background and think, okay, I did this accomplishment, I did this success. I have to be prepared to tell every one of these stories, right? And that could be 10, 20 different stories. But if you look at a job posting, there's actually maybe about 5 to 8 stories that are really going to matter. You want to have a leadership example. You want to have a problem solving example. You want to have an example where maybe something failed. You bombed on something, and how did you recover from it? There's really only about 6 to 8 stories that will actually be your heavy hitters to take into an interview. So I don't know if you are confident having those stories prepared, but that could be one topic that we could really just use and use an example of something that you've applied to, and we can really break it down, and I can show you how to pull those out. And then you'll find that story tends to be one that you have ready for every one of your interviews, because it's common across the type of jobs you're going to apply to. You may find that some are unique to that job title, and you can identify that easily, and that will just be prepared. So I wasn't sure if that was another topic that you'd be interested in covering.
Maybe. I mean, I know what you mean by, I don't know. I mean, not so much stories. Like, I think I always start with, I don't like to see it as like a negative or, a problem or I failed. I look at it as more of a learning opportunity. And I always refer to when I first started in my career where, I didn't know as much as I do now, or the people I worked with had a lot more years of experience and just knew the ins and outs more. But there was a case that actually stood out to me recently where I did interview with Electric Boat, and I've interviewed with them for a number of roles, and I haven't gotten very far. And the last one was, can you explain to us, based on what you know of the job and your experience, like of the 3 facets of this job, what would you deem as the most important, the next most important, the least important? And I said, well, from my perspective and just what I know of the role, I said this, that, and the other thing. And it, for the most part, flowed fairly well. But then at the same time, it also didn't. Like, it just kind of like, and I don't know whether I just had a bit of a moment where I kind of spaced out. I'm like, oh, I think this sounds like the correct thing. These kind of like one-off questions that I think I had asked you, or I have learned that I thought these interview questions were like one-offs, or it seemed like it was a total fluke. And I was made aware that it's actually no, they always ask the same questions to everyone they interview. They kind of are more so gauging, how you respond to this, and how would you, solve the problem, so to speak. Does that make sense? Like, those types of things is what I think I need help or work with. Oh, Angel?
Sorry. Yeah, one sec. I'm having some technical difficulties here. I'm trying to adjust it real quick.
Okay.
Okay. I think I fixed it.
Like, I know what you mean by the, like, story wise.
Yeah, well, and here, let me share my screen real quick, because here's what I was trying to pull up, and it kind of jacked everything up. But so, and I was going to send this to you and just have you take a glance at it, and I was going to include this, but now that you're at the interview phase, you're pretty much, today's job search is a job campaign. And the 3 components to successful interviewing in today's job market, where you're more marketing your expertise. It's more of a job search campaign.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to hire people that they know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And we establish this. So we have your materials that you're sending out as you're applying for different jobs. And so how do we build, like, how do we go to an interview with people we barely know and establish this know, like, and trust factor? And a part of it is kind of these 3 tips. It's how we communicate our value, which are those stories, those 5 to 8 key value messages. It is how we are present in the interview, so how you build that rapport. And there's also something called mirroring. So if you are when I go to interviews, I tend to sometimes talk fast. But if I go in an interview and the person is more laid back, more of a slow talker, more relaxed, I will mirror their communication style. That's how you build kind of that likability. They relate to you because you see, it's like you're their vibe in a sense.
Yeah.
And then establishing a good fit, how you research the company and align yourself to those company values, meaning you are a natural culture fit and they would look forward to adding you to their team. So these are kind of once you get to the interview stage, again, you're already qualified. Now it's how do you focus on that know, like, and trust.
Okay.
Yeah, so these were kind of I'll send this over to you, but since and if you can do me a favor, if there's any questions that you want to focus on from a scripting perspective, I will send these over along with this. And also I'm going to,
and this recording, if you could too.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. And so send me over any other questions that you would want to be able to go forward. I've had this question asked. I'm not really comfortable with it. Can we spend some time here? And then take a look at this, because those value messages or those stories, that's what I was referring to with this piece on how to be confident communicating your value. If you've ever received any kind of feedback, from communication style, maybe mirroring is another topic you want to cover. So you can take a look at this and let me know if hiring now is influencing these decision makers to know, like, and trust you. Let me know which of these areas, like, no, I feel like I'm pretty good there, or you know what, not so sure on this one. And let's cover this as well. So you can kind of take a look at that and let me know which one of these that you think would be valuable. Because at this point, as you're getting your resumes out there, we just want to make sure that you have all the tools in your tool belt to help you succeed.
Yeah, and actually, well, I guess to clarify the original point, I know you said about following up in a week or so based on the cover letter that you produced, based on what I had previously. I mean, I don't know, like, does that apply whether, I'm like applying for jobs through LinkedIn on the company website?
Yes,
or
definitely.
like referrals, etc.?
Yes. And, when you're doing it through LinkedIn, it may be, if you don't have the exact hiring manager's name, you can look in their company list of people and just look for anyone with the title recruiter.
Okay.
Or you could even look for, if you know the name, if the job happens to mention the type, the organization within the company, sometimes you can find the director for that and follow up with that person.
Okay.
So you can get creative on that.
Well, and it has been mentioned to me recently when I started applying, and I was kind of questioning that. I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem like, I kind of question that. I question a lot of things. Like,
well, remember, know, like, and trust. You are getting on the radar. And I've heard, I attended a conference a couple months ago where they had a panel with a bunch of managers and director leaders, and they were asking them, what is the most, what do applicants do that help them stand out? And one of the ladies mentioned that, once she received, and not everybody does this, but she received a email from someone who somehow tracked down, realized that she was part of the organization. They had an open role, and she sent in really just an introductory, I've applied for this particular role. I greatly value your organization because of this, and this, because she researched the company. I really look forward to bringing, a very thoughtful, well put letter, and just sent it to one of the leaders.
Yeah.
It happened to end up in her plate, and she responded to that person because they took the time to track down who she is. And that
Did she end
person
up getting the job? Because I think I've heard a similar story about. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's many people over time. This happened to be a woman in tech, payments, technology event that I went to. So, I doubt I'm assuming there are many stories out there with similar, So I'm assuming it's a common story, but it surprised me when managers were mentioning that people don't do this. And we would think that all we're going to do is annoy them. Let's not like spam, but it's actually still, people are getting more jobs through in this market through outreach versus not. So what that told me is that we have to get over the idea that we're being spammy. We're not. They have a hiring problem, or they wouldn't have a job posting. And you are finding a creative way to reach the right person with a very well thought, and I can help you if you need help with that note, but a very just well thought message to get on their radar. And you are just putting your name in front of them. So when and since it's like marketing, the more times they see our name, the better for us.
Well, and I did do that with that last job I applied for, and they're like, "Oh, we're still looking." And then my friend that referred me to it, that knew someone that was trying to refer someone to get a bonus for referring someone, said, "Oh, we were actually already kind of getting the offer ready when you applied." And
it's just a little late in the process.
I was like, I thought maybe I was like, how often should you follow up? Like, is daily okay? Is every couple days adequate? Once you've interviewed, when you're trying to, like, even with the job I applied for yesterday, I reached out to the person I worked with last time for a role where they thought I was a good fit, but they decided to hire internally. They said that, keep an eye out for future opportunities and let them know when I apply. And they're like, "Oh, I don't know when this new role is going to close. They just put it up, etc."
Yeah.
So, I missed the 24-hour mark as you were saying. But
Yeah. I mean, that's just if you want to get at the top of the list. So definitely within the first 24 hours if you can. But the longer it's been out there, they already have a number of applicants that they already have in the hiring process. I know that if I were to do an internal referral, I usually reach out to the recruiter internally and just, "Hey, are you even accepting applications?" Because I'm not going to put that person through that, but not everyone thinks to do that. So.
Okay. And then I guess based on what I've told you and what the possible outcomes are, I guess how long do you think it may take me to find another role?
I mean,
that's on one of my emails.
I mean, that's hard to say. I'm not sure. It sounds like you're getting some traction with responses though, but it's taking right now, the average that we're seeing is 10 months and over. Now, a lot of people are hitting the job market though, assuming I'm going to do what I've always done. And a lot of people are unemployed even longer because it takes a while for them to get so frustrated something's not working. And then they finally realize they need help because it's still so different.
Well, I told my roommate about, I'm like, you might want to, because they were having, I mean, I guess thankfully they did get something more full time, but they're like, "Oh, I still don't know when I'm supposed to be starting." And I'm like, "Well."
Yeah. I mean, what stinks is that it's not just like, I have a feeling in the future, everyone is going to, kind of like how we all have recruiters we work with, everyone will have some type of career coach to work with, because it's not as simple as having just a basic resume anymore. The marketing, the branding, there's just so much that goes into it now that we need certifications to understand all this, like formal training, and colleges unfortunately are not helping us with it. my college back in the day forced me to go through that, but I happened to have a father who was very big on resumes and interviewing and strategic presentation. So I kind of benefited from, here's everything I'm hearing, Dad. Is it all correct? And then he pretty much set me straight. Not everyone has that. And schools, I hear schools are backing out from what they'll do for students instead of doing more. And it's just, so I suspect in the future, everyone will work with someone in some capacity. So,
Okay. Oh,
all right.
Thank you. And yeah, I do have to run, but
Yeah, me too.